every year I'll have those certain prospects that I get what people see in them, and I understand what people see in them. But when it comes time for me to actually sit down, watch their film, evaluate them, I don't know that I always see it. I don't know that I always get it. And for me, one of those guys in this year's draft class is at the wide receiver position, and that's Michael Thomas. 6'3", 205 pounds, redshirt junior out of Ohio State. It was a part of the 2014 national champion Buckeyes team. He's had himself a productive career at Ohio State, if not necessarily a spectacular career, productive nonetheless. I see a lot of people falling in love with the possibilities, the potential, and seeing what he could be, envisioning what he could be, thinking that he may be a better NFL wide receiver than he was a college receiver, in part because of the system, the inconsistent quarterback play that he played at Ohio State. I understand and I get it, but again, there are just a certain guys sometimes that every year, and sometimes I end up being right, and sometimes I end up being wrong, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be right or wrong on Michael Thomas. There are just so certain guys that I just don't get it and I just don't see it. Now, again, I talked about the fact that I can understand why people are high on this guy. You look at his size first and foremost, 6'3", 205 pounds. He's got the height and length that you like out of a number one wide receiver at the NFL level. But he's got more than that. He's got really good initial quickness. He's got vertical speed to be able to stretch the top off of opposing defenses. You're looking at a guy 6'3" that can run. That's a really good physical package to start out with. And sometimes we could just fall in love with the physical package and that's it. But there's more to Michael Thomas than just the physical tools, although his physical tools are really, really nice. I like how he utilizes his body in terms of his open field agility. Here's a guy that you could throw a 3-yard slant to and he could pick up 8, 9, 10 yards. He's got some athleticism. He's got some juke, some make you miss. Not the most in this draft class. Again, I think guys like Corey Coleman and Will Fuller are better at it. But again, 6'3" and a guy that's not just some stiff, the guy that can actually make something happen once he gets the ball in his hands, that's a nice skill set to have. I think in terms of the routes he was asked to run at Ohio State, I thought he was pretty good in those routes, pretty consistent in doing what he needed to do and executing the routes he was expected to run and needed to run. I liked what I saw out of him. So he was using his size, he was using his quickness and his vertical speed to his advantage. I also thought when he catches the ball with his hands, he's got really nice, consistent hands. When he's catching the ball with his hands, I thought he was pretty reliable. One of the best pure hands catchers in this draft class. So maybe at least top 4 or 5. I think there's some other better hands catchers in this draft. But when he catches the ball with his hands and he looks it in, he's really, really good and pretty sure-handed. What I also like about him, too, and you might laugh about this, but I think this is a serious trait that will benefit him even more at the NFL level than it did at the college level because teams tend to not press as much. They tend to play more zone, tend to give more cushion, more space. I like Michael Thomas's ability to use his hands to be able to draw pass interference penalties. Something I saw him do quite a bit the past couple of years at Ohio State. Now you get to the NFL level and teams are more physical, they're pressing you more. This is a guy that could affect field position without ever having to catch the ball. This is a guy that could sit there on a 3rd and 9, go gain you 50 yards because he got somebody to give you a pass interference penalty. Or in a 3rd down and long situation, he could draw an illegal contact, automatic first down. He could draw a defensive holding, an automatic first down. I mean, those are big plays. Sometimes the biggest plays a wide receiver can make don't involve catching the ball. Sometimes it's going down and run blocking, and it's blocking at the 2nd level down the field. And sometimes it's just the ability to draw a penalty on the defense and bail your offense, bail your quarterback out. And Michael Thomas showed me that ability to do so, and I like that skill set quite a bit, and I think it is something that he will translate to the NFL level relatively well with and be even better at. So again, I look at those areas and I'm like, I get some of the reasons why Michael Thomas is so prevalent. And even in some of the early mock drafts I've done, I've had Michael Thomas go in as a 1st-round pick because I'm envisioning teams and front offices falling in love with him and seeing the physical tools and some of the things he does with the physical tools and envisioning what they could do when they coach him up. And if he learns the NFL game, what's going to happen, what's his upside, what's his potential, they're going to feel is very big. I'm just not sure how big it is. And I'll give you some of the reasons why now. First and foremost, 6'3", 205 pounds. I don't think he does a very good job of catching the ball if it goes low, meaning his catch radius is not nearly as big as somebody that's 6'3" should have. To me, like I've talked about with some of the smaller wide receivers, I want to see them play bigger than their size when it's called for. To me, Michael Thomas plays smaller than his size when it's called for. There are times where, to me, he plays like somebody who's only 5'11", 6 feet. Now, he has an okay ability to go high point the ball. He's not one of the best leapers in this draft class in terms of how it translates to the football field, going up and high pointing it. So, again, a guy that big with that smaller catch radius, I don't know. And talked about his hands. I said when he catches with his hands, he's really good, but that's the key thing, catching with his hands. There's a lot of body catching. So I envision when he gets to the NFL and quarterbacks are throwing it even harder, and he's in particular in cold weather situations, this guy could have some trouble holding onto the football. He lets the ball get into his body too much. He puts himself in some bad catch positions. So factoring in a limited catch radius for a guy of his size, and now the fact that his catch radius is even smaller because he lets too many balls get into his body, that's something that could potentially be coached up and worked on, but then I look at his limited route tree. I mentioned earlier, again, it's like a lot of these positives have caveats to them. They have buts to them. Well, he did run some nice routes, but he wasn't asked to run a lot of intricate routes at Ohio State. I think he has a relatively limited route tree. So as of this moment, the way I look at it is even with that size, that quickness, that deep speed, he's going to have to get better at running more routes and executing those routes more consistently. Otherwise, defenses are going to have an easier time game planning for them. They're going to be like, he's either going to run a 10-yard hook, a simple out, a slant, or a streak pattern, and that's about it. He's got to get better. He's got to be able to do things. He's got to incorporate more double moves. I mean, he showed that ability. Like, for example, when he was going up against Kendall Fuller in the Virginia Tech game to kick off the year, he hit him with a great double move, and burned him for a touchdown over the top. But I'd like to see that more consistently. I'd like to see a more expansive route tree than what he was asked to run at Ohio State in Urban Meyer's system. I also look at his field awareness. You watch Michael Thomas, one thing that stands out to you over the past couple of years on the bad side is the fact that he doesn't always seem to know where he is. He doesn't always seem to know what he's supposed to be doing, and this in particular shows up in run-blocking situations. There are plenty of times I saw in the past couple of years he got in Ezekiel Elliott's way or J.T. Barrett's way or Cardell Jones's way or other wide receivers' way. Sometimes he would run a route that's too close to the other wide receiver. That field awareness gives me some real pause for concern, especially when looking back a few years ago, he redshirted after his freshman year at Ohio State because a big reason being that he was struggling to adjust to a college playbook. So there are some questions about football intelligence and being able to pick up the speed and tempo and the complexities of the NFL game. If he struggled at that at the college level, what makes you think that he would be able to knock that down lock, stock, and barrel at the NFL level? And I look at his football IQ and sometimes his football and field awareness, and I have some concerns about that. Combined with the fact that I have some concerns, if he had problems with it at college, he might have those same problems again at the NFL level, about being able to pick up an intricate, complex NFL playbook, in large part because ultimately he played in Urban Meyer's system at Ohio State. And we think back on Urban Meyer the past decade at Utah, at Florida, at Ohio State. Tell me a great wide receiver that he produced that really produced at the NFL level. I'll wait. Limited route tree. Struggling to pick up an NFL playbook because he wasn't asked to pick up a lot at the college level and even struggled to pick up what he did at the college level. Again, that should make you pump the brakes a little bit and give you some real pause for concern if this is going to be a guy that's going to be riding the pine for a while, might not make a lot of immediate impact because there's going to be a big adjustment period, and maybe, just maybe, he won't be able to coast by on physical talent at the NFL level. In terms of an NFL comparison for him, there are two guys to me, one more than another. Terrence Williams is one, because Terrence Williams, when he came out of the Baylor system, again, product of a system in part, but 6'3", 205 pounds or so, with quickness, with deep speed, and a guy that you look at him physical package-wise and some of the tools that he has, you think he should be more, and you expect him to do more. And Cowboys fans clearly understand this and know this. That's why they're harping so badly for this team to take a wide receiver early in the 2016 draft. It just never materializes. Even when Des Bryant goes down, Terrence Williams' level of play and production does not pick up as a result or as a consequence. So you look at him, physical package. It's a tease. It's a dick tease. It's like he should be more. He can do more. But he ultimately doesn't do more. And I can see some of that in Michael Thomas's game. But the best comparison that I have personally is Jordan Matthews from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I was big on Matthews coming out of Vanderbilt in 2014, and there are times that I didn't really like how Chip Kelly always deployed him in his offensive system. But similar to Jordan Matthews, Michael Thomas, 6'3", about 205 pounds. The height and length you love for an outside wide receiver. However, the quickness and the route tree that they have may make them better suited to run in the slot. Their propensity for body catching could lead to some really, really bad drops at the NFL level. Guys, again, just like Jordan Matthews, Michael Thomas, same type of deal. You see those with Matthews at the NFL level. You can have some nice big games, and you could blame that on the system. You could blame that on this, but sometimes it's because he doesn't get open like he should. It's because he doesn't catch the ball like he should. There are times where it seems to mentally get to his head, and as a result, has those big games, but also those games where he disappears and he's a complete non-factor, and it just shouldn't be that case for Jordan Matthews. And sometimes I look at Michael Thomas, and I saw that lack of consistency of effort. I'm not going to totally knock him because I can understand the frustration sometimes because there was that inconsistency and lack of quality play at the quarterback position, frankly, the past couple of years. I understand where there were large segments of games where he would go without touching the ball, without seeing a target, and that's got to get frustrating because you want some opportunities. You know you can make some plays. You want to be given the opportunity to make those plays, and I understand that. But again, I have some concerns about that heading into the NFL level. I do. So overall, I see a wide receiver with the physical tools that you want in a number one wide receiver. Quickness and speed to be able to get open, to be able to stretch on defenses vertically, a guy that's good at running the routes that he can, a guy that when he catches the ball with his hands can be pretty reliable in terms of catching the ball with his hands, a guy that can make something happen once he catches the ball. It's not his biggest strength, but it is a strength of his game. He's not just some stiff that has to run an 8-yard hook pattern and then he gets tackled and you're like, oh boy. He's not a Marty Booker type, let's put it that way. But for a guy of his size, I was surprised at his catch radius. I thought it was going to be bigger than it was. I thought he was going to be better at high pointing the ball than he was. And I think he may struggle to pick up the speed and the complexity of the NFL game, at least initially. I really, really do. And I have some concerns about if he was having trouble picking up the speed of the game and the complexity of the college game, how's he going to do at the NFL level? I'm also concerned about the limited route tree that he ran. The fact is that he wasn't asked to do a lot in terms of routes at Ohio State, and that Ohio State system that Urban Meyer has run, same place as Florida and Utah, hasn't produced a lot of quality NFL wide receiver talent. Not a lot of productive NFL wide receivers. So why is Michael Thomas so special that he's going to be that guy? Because even last year I was kind of big on Devin Smith, and he really disappointed me. You consider it lesson learned. I think Michael Thomas is a situation of teams are going to fall in love with tools, and they're going to be looking at tools and physical upside and what they want him to be as opposed to the reality of what he is or what he will be. So I think he'll get drafted higher than he should. I think there's a chance that he goes anywhere from the top 25 to 35, somewhere in that range. But for my money, Michael Thomas is probably the 6th, 7th, 8th best wide receiver in this 2016 NFL draft class, and probably should be a guy that you're looking at touching more with a late second to early third round pick as opposed to a late first to early second round pick.